Our next speaker is Mark Croxford on item 12.8, the planning proposal for Henry Parks Drive, Kiama Downs.
Is this what I've got to do? Wipe it over. Your Worship, Councillors, General Manager and Council staff, thank you for the opportunity to stand before you to voice opposition to item 12.8, planning proposal lot 442 DP 1201831 Henry Parks Drive, Kiama Downs. There are four grounds on which I base my opposition to the planning proposal before you. One, Kiama Municipal Council's Community Participation Plan 2019 as amended and on public exhibition until 29 June this month. The New South Wales Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, number 203, Part 3, Division 3.4, Section 3.3, Paragraph 2E. The New South Wales Government Planning and Environment Planning Proposals, a guide preparing planning proposals of December 2018, and Kiama Municipal Council's business paper, item 12.8, as previously mentioned in my introduction. In case I run out of time, I will state up front what I am asking you to consider. Firstly, when you vote on this matter, you give deep consideration to the matters I raise, and I trust you will collectively resolve to reject item 12.8 as proposed, as it is not a compliant document in accordance with the New South Wales Environment Planning and Assessment Act 1979, and that item 12.8 before you fails to factor in aspects beyond strategic merit. And secondly, I would ask that you consider moving a motion at the earliest possible opportunity to defer the rezoning consideration and engage the community at the first available opportunity to determine whether there is sufficient community support to proceed to the rezoning of Lot 442. Mr Mayor and Councillors, I am not opposed to planning development for opposition's sakes. I recognise the need for sensible and considered development. What I am opposed to is where a body, be it an organisation such as council, seeks to evade its social responsibility by hiding behind a process or procedure without explanation to the broader community by implementing said process to essentially produce a fait accompli for which there is little, if any, likelihood of any subsequent community concern being considered. I'm advised that in the vast majority of instances, when a planning proposal is sent to Gateway for determination, and once the process has sufficiently satisfied the statutory requirements of the Act, the matter proceeds to the benefit of the planning proponent and the council, which relies heavily on the recurring income generated by the rates payments arising. Many of you know me as a community advocate, and in that role I have sat opposite both the Mayor and General Manager on numerous occasions in meetings to ask for better forms of community engagement than currently exist, and for Council to better explain processes and procedures to the community so that they can understand why things happen in Council the way they happen. Indeed, I have had many similar conversations with most, but not all councillors present here today. Council's own community participation plan at the General Manager's message in the first two paragraphs states, Kiama Council is committed to creating great places to live, work and enjoy for the community. And driving principle behind the commitment is that best planning outcomes are reached when communities are engaged in the planning process at the earliest possible stage. Yet in the same document at section 6.1 paragraph 2 it states, Council will not notify planning proposals that have not received gateway determination. On this latter point, I have spoken extensively with the New South Wales Government, including our local member and the Office of the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces about this aspect, and I'm advised that there is neither a legislative or regulatory reason as to why Kiama Municipal Council, or indeed any council for that matter, cannot inform affected stakeholders or begin a community consultation process prior to gateway determination. In fact, in moving to community consultation to test community sentiment towards the rezoning of Lot 442 would be a significant demonstration of the community by the Council to not only meet the General Manager's stated intent in the participation plan, but to exceed community expectations. The proponent of the planning proposal knew full well that the purchase of the parcel of land knew full well that the purchase of the parcel of land was subject to rezoning and as such would carry the financial risk should rezoning not be approved. The New South Wales Environment Planning and Assessment Act 1979, number 203, Part 3, Division 3.4, Section 3.33, Paragraph 2E states, the planning proposal is to include details of the community consultation that is to be undertaken before consideration is to be given to the making of the proposed instrument. I have also read the New South Wales Government Planning and Environment Planning Proposals, a guide to preparing planning proposals, which states in Section 2.5, Part 5, Community Consultation, the planning proposal should outline the community consultation to be undertaken in respect of the proposal. The guide document, I might add, is inferior to the aforementioned piece of legislation and seeks to deviate from the intent of the legislation. I'm advised that the latter document may have created an unintended consequence in law by not providing the details as required by the legislation. In Council's business paper at item 12.8, planning staff recommend, based on strategic merit, the proposal proceed to gateway determination. Yet I put to you that Council staff had submitted an unsatisfactory document for your consideration and not complied with Part 3, Division 3.4, Section 3.33, Paragraph 2E of the Act. Council staff have also stated in summary that some residents may already be aware of the proposal following the recent sale of the land. I live directly adjacent the parcel of land, and the first time I became aware of the matter, particularly with regard to the detail, was when I read it in the council business papers. Subsequently, I have contacted a dozen neighbours, none of whom had any idea that the matter was to come before council or about the scale of what is proposed. Also, as many of you know, I am also the chair of council's North Precinct Committee. Should the land subsequently be rezoned R2 as proposed and a minimum lot size of 450 square metres be introduced, the development could lead to the construction of at least 100 residences should dual occupancy dwellings be subsequently approved. The Illawarra Shoalhaven Regional Plan of 2015 provides the framework of forecast dwelling numbers council needs to meet over 20 years. However, for reasons unbeknownst to many in the community, Kiama Municipal Council has been reluctant, if not loath, to provide numbers or explain where council is at in meeting the forecast numbers. Why does council not want to make public where the numbers are at? Can any councillor explain the logic? A failure on the part of council to provide sufficient evidence to counter any concerns that Kiama Municipal Council will not meet the forecast means that greenfield sites would be approved by a higher authority on that argument alone. I have heard it said by some before me that Kiama is different, but what has not been explained to me or the community is why is Kiama actually different? With apologies to Pauline Hanson, please explain. I mean no respect to council staff, but strategic merit should not be the only factor councillors consider when voting to accept or reject a planning proposal motion. The people of Kiama Municipality did not elect the council staff to represent our community. Collectively, we elected you 9 councillors. You owe it to yourselves, not only to yourselves, but also to your electors, to apply rigour and question the validity of each and every proposal that comes before you and not just be a rubber stamp for bureaucracy.
I'll have to ask.
Really, I can't stand to listen to any more of this.
Sorry. Can you wind up?
I have the last 2 points, which I'm happy to make.
I beg your pardon, councillors. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Respectfully, I ask that when you vote on this matter, you give deep consideration to the matters I have raised, and I trust you will collectively resolve to reject item 12.8 as proposed, as it is not a compliant document in accordance with the New South Wales Planning and Assessment Act 1979, and that the items before you fail to factor in aspects beyond strategic merit. I would also ask that you consider moving a motion at the earliest possible opportunity to defer any rezoning consideration and engage the community at the first available opportunity to determine whether there is sufficient opportunity or sufficient community support to proceed to the rezoning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
At this stage, councillors, I have to inform you that I will have to declare an interest on this item in the meeting tomorrow night, as it forms part of what used to be my property. Questions? Councillor Rice.
Just my first question, and thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming I didn't read through this planning proposal looking for evidence of the community consultation that was going to be undertaken. I presume though that you have gone over it with a fine-tooth comb and it's not actually there. I'll go back now and have a look.
In the consultant's report, Councillor, there is scant reference to a timeline which includes the PRACID approach that the guideline document recommends for preparing a planning proposal, which is inconsistent with that of the Act.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try and look through it a little bit to interpret it in that light.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sloan?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, I had the advantage of actually having your email up here whilst I was trying to keep up with that delivery. But just to follow on from Councillor Rice's question, the primary assertion why you're saying it's a non-compliant document is because it's not outlining exactly what consultation is going to happen going forward. But it does, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. The Act clearly stipulates that it is to detail, not outline, and there is a significant difference in the two definitions. And I have spoken to a number of people and they've said, "Ooh, you pointed out something that we haven't picked up before. We'll have to look at this."
Right. My other question was about that consultation. You said to determine whether there was sufficient community support. Do you think that many people who live in Gainsborough are going to be interested, if they're not immediately adjoining this proposed area? Many people are going to be interested to come out in support.
So there'll be all the residents of Newing Circuit, particularly those that back on to the eastern side of the boundary where the Pike Legacy stone walls exist, that it's my understanding that they are potentially protected under heritage.
Other heritage.
Also, the residents of Henry Parks Drive, of which I am one. We currently have about 55 residences in that street. Many of you would be aware that we run Santa's Runway on Christmas Eve and things like that. If another, and I've estimated because there is a great dearth of information in the document, but if dual occupancy was subsequently approved, that could be in excess of another 100 dwellings, which is going to compound a number of aspects that perhaps have not been taken into consideration at this early stage.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation, Mark. As I understand it, you're not against the notion of rezoning per se in that area, but you request that council seek greater communication with the community, greater community engagement. Is that right?
I'm not opposed to sensible planning. Now, the caveat was on the sale, subject to rezoning. It's not up to us to say whether it should or shouldn't be rezoned, but there needs to be an adequate and transparent process, which currently doesn't exist, in my humble opinion. And in fact, when I have spoken to many other residents about these related sorts of matters, they too express those concerns, which is why, when I was previously the chair of the Combined Community Advocacy Group, I raised concerns on that transparency with both the Mayor and the General Manager.
Okay. Are there any other questions, Councillor?
I pressed my button first.
But I can't see your lights.
I won't comment there. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, Mr. Croxford, how did you come to the conclusion that this council is evading its social responsibility?
In communication with many of the residents and ratepayers who firmly believe that perception is the reality until it is addressed.
Well,
I just find that answer so inadequate. Secondly,
I'm sorry if you find it inadequate, but it's the
I'm
answer
not
to the
asking for
question
your
of which you
comment.
asked.
I'm not asking for your comment. Secondly,
Well, I'm not asking for your snide remarks.
Secondly, are you aware that the rezoning request is for an R2 low density? So why are you spruiking that there will be dual occupancy, which is not permitted under R2 low density?
It is. I'm sorry,
to that
Councillor.
extent?
Well, until you see the actual development application, and as we know, historically, many applications that come in are subsequently amended. So who actually knows what it's going to be? Listen, Councillor, if you know what it's going to be, I'd like this week's lotto numbers as well.
And finally, Mr Mayor,
Thank you.
there's a legislative process. You stated in your presentation that there was no legislative process. There's a clear legislative process spelled out in the 1979 Act, which you quoted. So how can you quote that there is no legislative process?
No, I'm sorry, I think you may have misheard me, Councillor. I didn't say there was no legislative process. I said the planning guideline document that is being used to prepare planning proposals for consideration may have inadvertently misinterpreted the legislation and created an unintended consequence. I've actually sent you the words that I read out, if you'd like to read them in your own time.
Okay.
I look forward to doing that. But are you also aware of the unreasonable complaint conduct report and process that this council has and the allegations that you have made against the General Manager and the staff?
I beg your pardon?
Are you aware of our policy of unreasonable complaint conduct?
Did you hear me say when I couched it in such a way that I said, I mean no disrespect to council staff, but strategic merit should not be the only factor councillors consider when voting to accept or reject a planning proposal motion. So I reject that assertion out of hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other questions, councillors? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr
And
Mayor.
this will be
Thank you,
brought forward.
councillors.